It's been a while since we realized general thoughts of it, huh? Figure it's time for another episode of one of my favorite series. This time about Bloons. Now, despite what the title says, this is about the entire path, not just tier 5. But calling the video general thoughts on my Bloons path doesn't sound nearly as good, does it? Anyways, like the title does say, this is just my thoughts. It's just if you talk about my dumb opinions on every tower. It's not a definitive list, and it's highly opinionated, so don't take anything here too seriously. Also, if you pay close attention to the footage, you'll notice that Salvatore was recorded during the 4th of July event, while someone was recorded during the Halloween event. That's because I went through a large gap I like to call, hey wait, I have 365 gigabytes of Fire Emblem footage, I should probably stop recording more footage. Hence the jump. While it does mean that the game went through a fair amount of changes during the time, my opinions are all up to date. With that said, let's get right into general thoughts on every Bloons tier 5. Ultra Juggernaut. For the first time in this series, the first entry is actually something I like. U-Jug is a really dumb fun tower. It's not great in most situations. Having a slow firing ball of destruction is typically worse than a Crossbow, but when it shines, oh boy does it shine. Placing at the end of the path or in a place surrounded by walls and watches everything crumbles around it. It's still used in those situations, really nice frame damage, and the fact that it's the cheapest tier 5 in the game really come together to give us one of my favorite towers, and a fantastic start to the video. Plasma Monkey Fan Club. For a long time this was my least favorite path in the game. I thought of it as a garbage tier 4 and a tier 5 that was way too expensive to be useful. But recently something changed. It moved up to my second least favorite path in the game. Now let me get something out of the way. I really like all of the paths in this game. Even the ones I dislike more than others like PMFC, I still have loads of fun with. With that said, PMFC itself is a really fun upgrade. The ability to get 20 Plasma Monkeys anywhere, just see them obliterate everything near them is really fun. But getting to that point is not. Even after the recent reduction, I think the tower is too expensive, and the tier 4 really blows. Getting 10 Super Monkeys is far less helpful than it sounds, probably because they can't pop DETs and stick around for about 2 seconds. If they fix these two small problems with the path, I'd really love it. But as is now, I can really find myself dedicated enough to get the tier 5. Crossbow Master. CBM is undoubtedly the best path for Dart Monkey. The Crossbow just does so much more than the other tier 3s, and Sharpshooter is pretty uncontested too, especially with the wonderful crit system. And then tier 5 itself isn't shabby, though I would say at least path 2 catches up to Impaler. But oh man, the absolutely colossal range increase CBM gets is ridiculous. Throw a village into the mix and you've got a tower that can practically see the entire map, and fires at supersonic speeds. Crossbow is another path I really enjoy, but not quite as much as Ball of Death that is path 1. Glaive Lord. What happens if you decide to turn a Boomerang into Attack Shooter? Well, you get another one of my favorite paths in the game. Boomer Path 1 is the first path on here where I love all the upgrades. Of the 5 here, all of them do a fantastic job of building up to the tier 5, while being really fun and useful on their own. The whole mechanic of the tower, that being boomerangs that jump from balloon to balloon, is conceptually amazing. It makes the tower one of my go-tos for cleaning up, and the tier 5 itself is incredible. You know, it does fire ricocheting glaives super fast, also grants you the amazing shredding power of orbiting glaives, annihilating both balloons and Moabs. It's no wonder I love this tower so much. It's stellar at everything and even comes at a reasonable price. Perma Charge. P-Charge is another pretty cool tower, but not one I find myself getting all too often. Sure, the ridiculous attack speed of the looping boomerang shreds near everything that comes near it, but that's just the problem. Near everything. It irritates me to no end that this tower can't pop camo or lead without MIB. And the lead problem can be solved by crossing with path 3, but the glaive pierce is just so much better. As such, most of the time Glord feels like it does what P-Charge is trying to do, but better. But when you do have a MIB backing up, P-Charge is a whole lot of fun. Moab Domination. This path is weird, because it randomly switches between actually useful upgrades and upgrades that do practically nothing. The tier 2 and 4 are really solid, and then the tier 1 and 3 just kinda sorta exist. They're not bad, but is anyone gonna boomerang for the sheer power of Kylie rings? Anyway, the path is pretty fun. There's some not bad Moab damage, it does a decent job pushing them back, plus the infinite range of the tier 5 is pretty nice. But I think it's a bit outclassed. Moab Mauler mauls Moabs better, and ComCom is better pushback, and both those are far less expensive. Loon Crunch. Loon Crunch feels like the ultimate balloon bullying tower. Once you upgrade it to tier 5, nothing gets past it. The sheer pierce the thing has, plus the firing speed, just creates a pile of blimps and balloons that nothing can ever hope to escape from. And even up to the tier 5, it's a solid tower. Mostly. While balloon impact is also stellar, the tier 1 to 3 upgrades can feel a tad redundant, since they all essentially do the same thing. Still, I love this path, and it is absolutely one of my favorites. Moab Eliminator. Ah, the classic, shoot, it's round 40/80/100, and I don't have good Moab damage tower. While Moab Elim is one of the statistically best towers in the game, it's really not one of my favorites. I'm not entirely sure why, but I think it's maybe just because I only really pull it out when I'm too lazy to get any of the Moab damage. It's all just a rather boring tower, hence the really short segment. Bomb Blitz. Bomb Blitz is actually really similar to Loon Crunch in a lot of ways. They're both incredible crowd control options that focus on Bloons up to the tier 5, where you can also deal with mobs with ease. They both have a similar shape to the stock bomb shooter, and I really like them both. Bomb Blitz's sheer crowd control power is near unmatched, dealing with ceramics in a flash. It can also pop black balloons and has recursive cluster on every shot. But I wouldn't blame you for not knowing that, because for some stupid reason the tier 5 description tells you none of this. It actually only tells you the least helpful part of the tower, which is completely useless in chimps. Inferno Ring. I've talked about towers I love so far, but now there are towers I put in the elusive S tier. Inferno Ring changes that. I was a big fan of Ring of Fire in TD5, since it was amazing at ceramics as well as everything else that wasn't a mob, so I was interested to see how they can possibly improve it in 6. While I was impressed when I saw one of my favorite towers upgrades give it even more balloon damage, nice mob damage, a huge range increase, and a BFB one-shotting fireball, not to mention an amazing visual design. Needless to say, it quickly became one of my absolute favorites, where it stays to this day. Smail. The Maelstrom Path is another one I like, but not near as much as I-Ring. The blades are a solid upgrade and solve one of the attack shooter's main weaknesses, that being the balloons that slip through the attacks. The ability is a good semi-screen nuke. And then there's that tier 5, which is just stupid in the best way. The ability fires an onslaught of glaives that annihilate everything in their path, and it's already half charged by the time it's done. Kinda dumb, but that's why I love it. Attack Zone. Attack Zone just makes me sad, dude. It used to be a super threatening tier 5 with ultra fast firing attacks that popped everything they can see within its colossal range. And now it's just basically 2 overdrives. I can barely bring myself to go with the path anymore, just because of how much it fell from grace. Anytime I see it in its pathetic range increase, I just can't help but remember the glory days. Also, why did they remove the ability for this thing to pop leads? It makes 0 sense. A tower that costs 30k should be able to pop lead on its own. Hell, Smail can pop lead with its main attack. Yeah, bet most you didn't know that, huh? So if that way cheaper, way better tower can pop lead, why can't Attack Zone? That's just depressing, man. Super Brittle. Of all the towers in the game, Ice Monkey is definitely the one I get the least. And of all 3 paths for ice, Super Brittle is the one I get the least. Despite that, I really do like the tower. It's like a much cheaper version of Shattering, and the added vulnerability against the frozen balloons is really helpful. But I still just don't get it often. Probably because it falls short on the range part, and because almost all times when I could get an Ice Monkey, I go for Glue instead. Absolute Zero. When I do get an Ice Monkey, there's a very good chance for this path. Absolute Zero is by far my favorite path for the Ice Monkey, for its sheer utility purpose. Not only does it have a fantastic slowing ability that's applied to any balloon in its range, but it also has towers that can be placed on the water near it, which would be a lifesaver on any map with a ton of water. The ability is also just a really nice addition. It can save your skin more often than you think, but it's definitely not the reason you get the tower. I think the sheer amount of stuff Absolute Zero can do is just blows every other ice path out of the water, and even some of the glue upgrades. As far as support towers in the game go, this is certainly one of my favorites. Icicle Impale. Ice Impale is alright. Sure, it has some nice range and brings mobs to a halt, but I think it doesn't really measure up to the other pads. Like, super slowing mobs is nice, but is as nice as making them take more damage from everything, or being able to place towers on water? I don't think so. I still get it a bit more often than Super Brittle, but I just don't enjoy it as much. It's good at its job, but it's just a bit too boring for my tastes. Bloon Solver. Now this is a tower that lives up to its name. Bloon Solver in the tier 3 and 4 will absolutely decimate anything below mob. The super fast damage, ridiculous pierce, and slowing effect guarantees it won't have any opportunity to escape. Granted, it really falls flat against mobs. If you just get any anti-mob tower, that problem is solved as well. Bloon Solver is a rather simple tower, but has nothing as ceramic melting as it, and I love it for that. Glue Storm. Path 2 glue is a tower I have extremely mixed feelings on. On one hand, the super fast glue is a fantastic way to ensure that no balloon gets past the glue gunner, and the pierce just adds to that. But on the other hand, the ability is pretty awful for both the tier 4 and 5. It's just a much worse version of Absolute Zero and is rarely ever worth investing in. Overall, the path is fun enough for me to enjoy, but most of the time path 1 is just better at a similar role. Super Glue. Super Glue is basically Ice Impale, but I actually like it. It slows mobs down a considerable margin and costs 1/10 of the price. And if mob slowing for a mere 4k wasn't enough for you, the tier 4 is also incredible. Relentless Glue is also essentially a better version of Glue Hose, since it will cause a massive chain reaction that results in everything inside moving extremely slowly. The only problem with this path is that I absolutely despise the tier 5. But aside from that, it's pretty good. Seriously, why does this stupid thing suck so much? Why? Cripple Mob. Top Bat Sniper is a force to be reckoned with. The ability to remove so many layers at once makes it one of the most powerful single towers, especially in early game. If you can get some attack speed bonuses and then upgrade to deadly precision, this thing can easily carry you to around 50. Speaking of deadly precision, it is by far my favorite upgrade for the path. I like the mob stopping just fine, but if you get a deadly precision sniper set to lead, ceramics become a thing of the past. It's also worth noting this is one of the only towers that's viable in late free play due to the way cripple makes bad to take double damage from everything, so that's pretty cool. Elite Sniper. Another path I greatly enjoy in Sniper. Elite Sniper is a fantastic option for cleanup, since Bouncing Bullet, especially across path 1, does actually ridiculous amounts of damage per shot. It's also a pretty dang good support tower, not only giving a pretty good amount of cash, but also buffing the attack speed of other snipers, making it an asset for Axis of Havoc. Also, I just love the design of the tier 5. So many stupid lenses and scopes. It's so impractical, but that's why I love it. Elite Defender. Not to be confused with the other elite tier 5 sniper, Elite Defender is one of, if not the fastest attacking tower in the game, and boy is it fun. Seeing this thing shred every balloon before they can even show up is immensely satisfying, but not as satisfying as getting the added attack speed when balloons are near the end, and seeing it just backpedal and annihilate everything on screen. Best round to show how good the tower is round 63. It has a bit of trouble with the ceramics, but as soon as those get deleted, it just clears out all the leads in under a second. It's so satisfying, I really love the path, and it's another fantastic addition to S tier. Hey, this is Starman, but for the future, whoa. Why they remove the ability to pop lids? Why? Oh. Energizer. What's this? Two towers I absolutely love right next to each other? Amazing. Energizer is by far my favorite support tower in the game, and with good reason. There is so much this tower can do, and I love all of it. Not only does it have some really nice balloon damage, but it also removes camos better than any other tower at the tier 4. It also reduces ability cooldowns by a significant margin, even more so if it's a water tower, and it makes heroes in range earn 1.5 times experience. It's just so damn much this tower does, its support capabilities are near unrivaled. Or you could have it unsubmerged and just have a 202 sub that costs $35,000. That also works. Preemptive Strike. Past this path, I don't find myself going for all too much. When I do get it, I have a great time with it. I'm not a big fan of the tier 3, which is probably what discourages me from getting it so much. That and the fact that it's 20,000 more than the much better subcom. But the tier 4 and 5 really shine on this one. Being able to one-shot anything under a zombie with the press of a button is really nice. And everything about the tier 5 is great. The design, the super fast missile fires, and of course, the preemptive strike. Posting up against round 95, you'll see it justify that $50,000 price tag. Sub Commander. Subcom is another path I don't find myself getting all that often, but for an entirely different reason than pests. I really like all the upgrades it has, and they're all really good. But that's exactly the problem. They're too good. The entire subcom path is stupid overpowered and everyone knows it. This makes it just not all that fun to get, since it feels like a free win as long as you have a MIB. But I also really enjoy the tower, so I typically just get the path but avoid the tier 5. Carrier Flagship. Buccaneer may be my least favorite tower overall, but at least this path is pretty dang cool. It's one of those paths where I enjoy every upgrade from the tier 1 to 5, and it feels like a great natural progression. Anyways, this tower is really good for how cheap it is. Having an incredibly fast short range attack, along with infinite range mini planes, makes it excel at popping anything, anywhere. You can also put towers on top of it, which isn't too great since Snowstorm lets you do a similar thing for a tenth of the cost, but it's still pretty nice. Pirate Lord. Pirate Lord feels like the most there path in the game for me. Sure, it exists, and it does alright in game, but there's just no great reason to get it. I'm pretty sure I can count on one hand the number of times I got into tier 5, because there's just no good reason to. If you want ability to take down mobs for a similar price, just get Mobile Limb. If you want Buccaneer to make you a bunch of money, just go with path 3. I mean, it's pretty good in early game, since it's a really cheap camo lead piling power, but there's really no incentive for me to ever go past the tier 4. Trade Empire. A strangely good money making tower, but not much else. The third path Buccaneer will actually pay itself off rather fast, especially with a tier 4, and the selling reduction you get from it makes it really nice. But I think the tower follows a bit after that. The tier 5 makes more money, sure, but in order to maximize profit you need to place 19 other merchantmen, which really clutters up everything and just looks ugly. It also does some really mediocre damage. Like sure, you can take down the tier 2, but against 95, 99, and especially 100, you'd be better to have all those guys sold. Trade Empire may be a good moneymaker, but I think I'll just stick to banana farms. Sky Shredder. Sky Shredder, or as I like to call it, Seizure Plane, is a tower I like sometimes. I don't really know why, but my feelings on this are really indecisive. Sometimes it's one of my favorites, other times I think it's just okay. Overall, I enjoy the tower. It's a great anti-Moab tower, but it's weak against Bloons once free play rules start coming to play. Still up until then it's even good against ceramics. It's a fun tower, but one I don't get too often, just because I don't get aced much. If I go to Moab damage on certain maps, that's worth something. Sarbama, another path I'm not a fan of. Of all the screen nuke abilities, ironically the actual nuke is my least favorite of them. I think it's because it happens to be one of those paths where the tier 5 and 4 just add the ability and basically nothing else, similar to Glorm. I know that it increases bomb damage as it goes, but I think it needs a bit more. If I'm going for a screen nuke, my go-to is typically Pop Gnaw, and not this path. Flying Fortress. Spectre was another path I was looking forward to seeing tier 5 when it's transitioned to 6, and I was certainly not let down by Big Plane. Path 3 Ace is by far my favorite path for the airplane. Never misses a fantastic cleanup and fixes the biggest problem with the tower, and Spectre just annihilates everything pre-round 80. It only costs 25k to do so. And then the legendary Big Plane justifies its massive price tag of being a worthy successor to Spectre. The path is actually really similar to the next one we'll be discussing, and the two of them great synergy together, as many odysseys have taught me. Apache Prime. What's this? Another $25,000 tier 4 aerial tower that is really well at demolishing everything, and one I really like. What are the odds? Helicopter is one of my favorite towers in the game, and this path is definitely one of the reasons why. Apache Starship is just one of the best upgrades in the game, and can nearly solo up to round 80. And then Apache Prime is just something else. But here's the weird part. For as much as I adore this path and how ridiculously good it is, it's actually my least favorite path for the chopper, which really just goes to show how much I like this tower. Special Poperations. Another one of my favorite support towers. Poperations has the wonderfully unique and useful ability to be able to move any tower to a new location, which single-handedly makes it one of, if not the best support tower in the game, and an asset for any map with multiple instances. But much like Energizer, it does so much more than that. It's a nice pushback, making it function like a portable Druid of the Storm, a good amount of money from the crates, and the incredible tier 5. Oh, I love this tier 5. Not only is it the fastest airborne tower by a long shot, but also becomes a great damage tower due to the Marine, and my favorite thing about the tower, Door Gunner. Being able to carry any non-tier 5 tower is absolutely amazing. You can carry something like a Spike Mine Factory, a Sunhover Tower, or even a goddamn Dark Champion. With Door Gunner, Special Poperations really does become the best support tower in the game. Kamachi Commander. Now here's a hot take for y'all. Despite all the gushing about Poperations that I did, ComCon is actually my favorite path for the heli. Weird, huh? Anyways, the Moab pushback this thing has is actually ridiculous. It's like May Moab except way cheaper, and it doesn't need to worry about line of sight at all. But the tier 4 and 5 are what really make this tower great. The mini Kamachis that come in and help pack way more firepower than they look like they would, and can be a really great asset to your defense. And then getting 3 of them at once makes this thing almost equal in power to Apache Prime. Now due to this being path 3, you'll have to choose between Pursuit and bigger jets for it. But this is actually way easier than it looks. The little Kamachis aren't just helpful, they're smart. They'll always be on pursuit targeting, so they can deal with the front lines, but like me and just follow your mouse to be wherever it needs to be. Biggest one. This is a path that's really similar to Bloon Solver in a lot of ways. It's a relatively cheap path that excels in popping balloons, and especially ceramics, but it's pretty weak against Moabs. It also has something to slow balloons down, and has a chemical aesthetic to it. And like base one, just as much as I like Bloon Solver. Pop and Awe. Before the recent buff artillery battery god, this was by far my least favorite path for mortar. But now, well, it still is, but it's by a close margin now. It was always kind of weird that Artbat was the only middle path tier 4 to not have an ability of any kind. But now it has an ability that can actually make getting to tier 5 a downgrade. It's nice. Also, just having a mortar that attacks at triple speed is amazing, and solves the biggest problem with the tower. And as for the tier 5, like I said in the star segment, it's my favorite screen nuke in the game. Not only does it do a metric ton of damage, it also stuns everything inside and can be recharged instantly with Striker Jones. Blue Incineration. An interesting take on a support tower. While Third Path for Mortar starts out as a full support tower, working as a much worse version of submersion support, it then evolves into being one of the best support towers in the game, being a reliable way to strip fortification from mobs, but then the tier 5 really changes things up. It makes the tower create a permanent wall of fire that does colossal amounts of damage to everything, and it can also solo some of the later runs with ease. Like I said, it's a really interesting take on a support tower, one that I'm a big fan of. Ray of Doom. Path 1 Dartling is a tower I'm a bit mixed on. The tier 3 is fine, but is outclassed by Hydro Rocket Pods, so they can pop lead and purple, and they cost less. Then the tier 4 is really fun to use, and does some serious damage. But all of that power getting shut down by a single purple balloon, which is infuriating to deal with sometimes. And the tier 5, which is really pricey, warrants that price by being the only tower with infinite pierce, and doing enough damage to shred through everything it hits. Overall, the tower is pretty good, but it's also definitely my least favorite path for the Dartling Gunner. Mad. There is such a huge difference between the tier 4 and 5 for this path, it's actually ridiculous. The tier 3 and 4 are pretty good ceramic damage, but really shine because they can pop every kind of bloon reliably, while struggling a bit against mobs. But tier 5 is like nothing else in the game. Each single attack from a Mad can one-shot a BFB, and with decent attack speed and infinite range, it makes it the single best anti-mob option in the game, unmatched. This thing makes Baz look like a joke, and that's without the near screen wipe ability it has. However, it can't pop a ceramic to save its life, but pair it with a Bloon Solver or biggest one and you're golden. Bloon Exclusion Zone. Path 3 Darling is really weird. It's a fun tower and one I quite enjoy, but it's also just weird. Buckshot's a bad upgrade, only if it's main damage source. If it's not, it's an extra way of dealing with some stronger bloons. Let the tier 4 and 5 return Darling to its rapid fire roots, while keeping the power and spread of Buckshot. It's a fantastic source of damage, and having every second target one of the 4 different targeting options is a wonderful idea. It makes the tower good at taking out everything in execution. The only problem they have is its inability to pop leads, even though it costs upwards of $70,000 in harder modes, which is pretty stupid. Archmage. Archmage is a tower that really tries to do it all, and succeeds for the most part. I really like the idea of combining all 3 wizard tier 3s into one super powerful tower, and it's pretty fun execution. You get to see this guy vaporize nearly every bloon in sight, but it's not without its flaws. Poor Archmage falters a bit against big bloons and ceramics, so it falls off in later rounds, and despite costing $40,000, it still gets defeated by a single purple bloon. However, considering how good it is in early game and the wonderful concept the tier 5 has, I'm gonna have to say I really like this one. Wizard Lord Phoenix. Wizard Lord is probably my favorite path for the Wizkid, but it's a tough pick between it and Archmage. The tier 3 is what really makes this one for me. The rapid fire projectile with Mega Pierce makes it function like a mini super monkey with plasma, and the ability the later upgrades provides gives you a temporary Spectre for only a tenth of the cost. It's great, and much like Archmage, the tier 5 is a brilliant concept. Permanent uptime on the ability, while making the ability turn you into improved second Phoenix. I love it. And speaking of the tier 5, my absolute favorite thing about this tower has to be the stupid hat he gets for the tier 5. Up until he gets a classic wizard hat with some gems on markings on it. Once he hits tier 5, it gets replaced by this really dumb looking bird hat. The tier 5 artwork makes it look so cool, but in the game it's so dumb in the best way possible. I adore it. Prince of Darkness. Pod is a tower I haven't actually talked about before, but I basically have. All my thoughts on Pod are nearly identical to my thoughts on Subcom. I really like the path, I truly do. But it's so absurdly overpowered, I just feel bad getting the tier 5, or even the tier 4 sometimes. And then if I want to use the tier 3, I'd just be better off getting Submerged Support. It's not the tower I dislike, nor is it a bad tower, but since I missed a really underpowered pod that nobody ever used. Grand Master Ninja. Another tower I don't find myself gravitating towards too often. While Bloon Jitsu and everything preceding as an early game Juggernaut, Grandmaster feels rather weak by the time you can afford it. Maybe it's because it can't pop leads, or maybe it's because it doesn't really pull its weight without a bunch of Shinobis and an Alchemist, which can nearly double the price tag of the tower. Whatever the case may be, it feels really underwhelming for the price it costs, and could really go for a buff one of these days. Grand Salvatore. This is, without question, the tier 5 I have gotten the least. I think that in all my time playing, I've gotten this thing like twice total. Well, now 3 times because I had to record it, but still. I don't even know why it is. I like the tower well enough. The Screwbite still has an incredibly powerful ability, and it's pretty dang well balanced for what it is. And the tier 5 increases its power, makes mobs take preemptive damage, and is ridiculously cheap for a tier 5. But still, I just never get it. Well, after trying it out again, and reaffirming the fact that it is a tower I enjoy using, I'll definitely be making up for lost time with Grand Savo. Master Bomber. Hey, a ninja path I actually get. Wowie! This thing is a really good tower for early game, even by ninja standards, due to the fact that you can afford lead popping before round 28 and more popping before round 40, and both in the same tower that also happens to see camo. Even after early game, Sticky Bomb is really good mob damage, and help you up until round 80. Yeah, I wish you should be able to afford Master Bomber. I really like the tier 5 with the Moab down approach, by giving the most powerful tool the tower has infinite range. It really helps the tower by being able to deal with mobs before they even enter its range. Not only that, but it's some real damage to the poor blimps. The one thing I don't like about this tower is that the tier 5 is just wearing a regular old hoodie. It's just kinda weird to look at. True Sun God. Super Monkey is my second favorite tower overall. It is my least favorite path for it. With that said, I still absolutely adore this path. Just not quite as much as the other two. Sun Avatar is an amazing tower for only being 25k. I can nearly still up to around 80, with maybe a village to help out. Sun Temple is probably my favorite design of any tower in the series. Just the temple with its big old head sticking out and vaporizing everything seems classic. And I love the kind of dopey look it has. Not to mention the sacrifice mechanic is absolutely genius. And the way every category affects the stats of the temple is also genius. The tier 5 Helver is where the tower falls a bit for me. Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, it's super expensive and mandatory and free play, but it's just not that fun. You never get a Sun God or Vengeful God because it's fun, you get one because you need one. Not to mention the massive projectiles it has makes it nearly impossible to see what's going on. But still, everything up until there was definitely fun enough to make this one of my favorites. Anti-Bloon. Royal Monkey is a poor tower that has gone through so many balance changes since the release, but through thick and thin, I have loved the tower. I've always liked the dual armor mechanic it added in 5, and some of the latest changes that has been given only help to make me love it more. Dual targeting, crits everywhere, not to mention it's the only Super Monkey tier 5 that's affordable in chimps. My only real complaint is that Tech Terror has always felt kinda underwhelming, and really just serves as a middle ground, but I don't think it's gonna be changing anytime soon. Oh well, much like Sun God, I can live with one upgrade I don't like as much and still love the tower. Legend of the Night. So, what happens if you get a Super Monkey path with no upgrades I even remotely dislike? The answer is you get my second favorite path in the game. The Batman path is definitely one of my favorite additions to BTD 6. Not only because it feels like a great addition to one of my favorite towers, but also because it adds another great new mechanic, Dark Shift. Being able to move this one tower at will is such a fantastic concept, and works great in execution. Is it a bit buggy sometimes? Yeah, sure. But still a great addition to tower and somehow wasn't included when the game first came out. Weird. Plus the tier 4 expanding it map-wise feels like a great logical progression of the ability. And there's the fact that tier 5 can just straight up absorb an infinite amount of Bloons for a brief period of time. For once, the tier 5 description, while maybe vague, is really accurate. Superstorm. I'll admit now, Druid is probably my third least favorite tower, after Bow and Ice. But with that said, this path is well prevented for being a least favorite. I absolutely adored the Tornado path for Wizard back in BTD 5. But when I saw they moved from it, I initially thought they had just deleted, but luckily they shifted onto Druid. And I think it fits even better on him since it's all nature and whatnot. The blowback mechanic from 5 stays the same for the most part, until you reach the mega pricey tier 5, where you gain the abilities to shove back mobs to the start. While I love the tier 5 for being a great evolution of my favorite towers and for looking dope, I also kinda hate it because unless you have some damage at the very front, it is going to make each round take forever. That's something I'm willing to ignore from my beloved Tornado path. Spirit of the Forest. Hey, you guys know Carpet Spikes? Well, Kira's Carpet Spikes except deals no mob damage, sometimes. Spirit is a tower I like conceptually, but it feels kinda weak in execution. For one thing, the money making ability that he's surrounded with a bunch of farms is really dumb. And for a reason why I see Trade Empire. And then the Spirit itself was pretty weak. Before the new buffs, it couldn't do much of anything to any blimp past the Moab. Now, however, it is far stronger. But I still prefer Carpet Spikes, a similar tower with, in my opinion, much better execution. Avatar of Wrath. Avatar of Wrath is pretty cool. I like the Druid stacking ability Populous has, though it's really weird that the Druids don't buff themselves even though Shinobi Ninjas do. But yeah, the concept of this tower is good in execution and concept. A tower that does more damage the more stuff is on screen is a great idea. And in execution, it means that the tower does what we in the industry like to call a metric ton damage. Is it my favorite Druid path? No. Is it still a lot of fun and tower get frequently? Yes it is. Perma. Oh hey, it's the best tower in the game, but it's actually not overpowered. Cool. P-Brew and everything leading up to it is a really powerful buff to any tower, increasing popping power, pierce, range, and giving the ability pop bloods nothing short of incredible. I don't get the tower all too often, when I do it's typically to buff a single tower too. Unless it's P-Brew, in which case it gets to go on a world tour in his helicopter. It's a nice buff path, and while it's not my favorite support tower, it's a good fun tower to get every now and again. Total Transformation. You guys remember my problems with PFC? And you remember how I said it was my second least favorite tower? Well, say hello to the one that surpassed it, Total Transformation. Total Transformation is just a worse version of PFC, and without any of the dumb fun that comes from the towers. For starters, I really like the tier 3. Exploding mobs is amazing in some of the later rounds, where they also get clumped together. Well, then tier 4 just makes it all fall apart. The transformed Alk is basically just a temporary plasma monkey, but it feels so jarringly disconnected from the tier 3, like they're put on the wrong path. Especially since the Alk can't put exploding potions on the mobs while he's transformed. What's weird is the fact that the transformed Alk can't even shoot through walls, despite it being one of the main drills of the Alchemist, and the fact that his range says he can. What? Why? And then tier 5 is just, Despite what the name would make you believe, it does not permanently transform the Alchemist. Instead, it transforms 5 nearby monkeys into monsters as well. Or in other words, it's just a way worse PFC. I've never found any reason to go to pass the tier 3 on this path. The tier 4 and 5 feel outclassed in every way possible. Bloon Master Alchemist. What if I told you that Bloon Master Alchemist, quite possibly the single worst tower in the game, and the only tower that makes you lose a metric ton of money, was actually my favorite tower in the game? Yeah, everything about this path I love. Lead to Gold is a fantastic way to get a boatload of money, especially against round 63. Round to Gold is also a great way to get some cash, though not as effectively. And then Bloon Master is a weird upgrade. I love the shrink ability it has. Turning even a fortified zombie into a single red bloom will never not be hilarious to me. It makes rounds like 80, 87, and 97 way faster than they would be otherwise. Not to mention, this thing is a powerhouse in free play, rivaling even Vengeful True Sun God and the Paragons in pops in super late game. Also, I love this guy's design. The blingy look is so weird yet stylish, I can't get enough of it. The one thing I would possibly change about this tower is getting the money from the mob when you shrink it, but as it stands, if you have a farm, it's not too big of a problem. Blue Master Octopus may suck, but that won't stop it from being my absolute favorite. Primary expertise. If a main damages a primary tower, you can bet on me getting a primary village to back it up. It's pretty much an alch buff, except buffs every primary monkey in range and has a way larger range increase. Also, the tier 5 attack is actually really good. An infinite range disc that ricochets from Bloons, Bloon, and Shred Ceramics. Count me in. Sure, I prefer the Beacon of Death from TD5, but I still enjoy the Mega Ballista. I really like the idea behind this tower. I hope the Monkey Academy does similar stuff with the other categories. Homeland Defense, a Bloons classic. Mib is one of the most iconic towers of the series, and it always has been. The additional abilities got a great progression in the tower, making everything in range attack faster. It's a really simple tower, but definitely one of my favorites. Also, since I ran out of stuff to say about the actual tower, I just want to talk about how much I love the design of all three of these upgrades. The office building look with the pentagon shape and that hypnotizing radar scanner, all of it comes together to make one of my favorite designs of any path in the game. It's just so good. Monkeyopolis. It's hard to measure up to the sheer might of primary expertise and homeland defense, and unfortunately Monkeyopolis doesn't even come close to doing so. I like a tier 3 and 4 for stars. Getting more money from everything is never bad, and tier 4 just improves on that. And gives you a free dart monkey every round. Yeah, I never understood the purpose of that. But a tier 5, I just don't see the point of. Like, sure, you can absorb nearby farms for their profit, but farms are typically away from all the action, so you wouldn't be receiving any buffs from the tier 3 or 4. And at that point, you'd just be better off selling them for more profit. I seriously just do not understand this upgrade. Banana Central. I love banana farms. I especially love this path from Banana Farm. Feels like the most logical path for the farm. Doesn't change how the farm works at all, and just makes more money with every upgrade. It's incredibly simple, but I love it for that. Also, Banana Research Facility is by far the best of farm tier 4s, and as someone who always preferred tier 4 over a collection of tier 3s, it makes me love this path even more. Monkeynomics. This path greatly changes how the farm works, more so than Aether, but I still really like it because it still makes you a ton of cash. Banks used to be by far the best way of making money in the game, with the almighty and all-broken bank deposit. After a couple of changes, it got moved to IMF loans and above, which is a change I really like. It gives people more reason to get IMF loan, which always felt underused. Speaking of, the IMF loan is great. It's one of the most strategic towers in the game, but if you use it really well, it can really help you out, more so than any other farm upgrade. And tier 5 just gives you 12,000 every 60 seconds, making it an ideal choice for late free play, where rounds start taking several minutes each. Good path overall, but I don't quite like it as much as path 1, but it's close. Monkey Wall Street. Hey, another support tower where the third path doesn't hold a candle to the other two. Wow! This path just feels like a far worse version of path 1. Like, not needing to hover your mouse over a general location farm is kind of useful, I guess. It doesn't matter for the tier 3, since tier 3s actually make the same out, but after that it gets horribly outclassed. If you're spamming tier 3s, I guess is the best choice, since it's cheaper than path 1 doesn't need intention. But if you're going to tier 4 and beyond, just don't bother. Super Mines. What's this? My favorite path on my favorite tower? Oh boy. This whole path straps the Spike Factory's more backline support based role, and works way better put near the front. Spike balls and mines will decimate ceramics, and even some weaker blimps with ease. Hell, a couple of them can solo a Zombie or two, no problem. But then the tier 5 really just cranks it up to 11. It is by far the most pricey non-Super Monkey tier 5, but there's a good reason for that. It still produces a whole bunch of spikes. It does so kinda fast, except each individual spike ball has an explosion the size of Mars and power to one-shot a DDT. It's nearly unrivaled in its sheer power, and I adore it for that. Carpet of Spikes. Carpet of Spikes is definitely my least favorite Spike Factory path. With that said, it's still a high tier tower for me since I have an obsession with Spike Factories. It's a really strange concept for a tower, having the ability to just randomly activate every couple of seconds. Because of how powerful each spike is, it works really well. Mob Shredder spikes live up to their name, let me tell you that. Also, since they don't have anything else to say about the tower, I just really like how each Spike Factory path needs to put in a different spot for maximum utility. Spike balls near the front, Perma at the back end. Carpet is a bit of a strange one, but works best near an intersection. We're going to place spikes that can damage mobs, though it really could go anywhere with the ability. Perma Spike. Honestly, the idea behind this tower is so incredible, I'm surprised it took them 6 games to think of it. The Perma Spike path is really weird. Much like Mobdom, it's a strange combination of good and useless upgrades. It's like being bad, good, good, bad, good. Yeah, I think Long Life is a great upgrade. The main draws of the path are Smart Spikes and, of course, the Tier 5. Smart Spikes somehow give the Spike Factory targeting, and some really good options of that. It's strange, but it's fantastic in execution. And there's the tier 5. It's actually stupid how many pops a single perma spike can get, and that they can all pop leads with just a 2xx alch. Is the upgrade overpowered? Yeah, absolutely. Do I care? No. Is this just because we have obsession with factories? Probably, yeah. Sentry Paragon. Ah, the last hour. Sentry Energy is a path I've always liked, so I was really happy when I saw it get buffed recently. This thing is an early game powerhouse. $1,000 for about 5 Dart Monkeys to take up no space is a really good deal, and even after the early game's later upgrades are still pretty good. Also, especially the use of every Sentry Expert Sentry, it makes the engineer really good at popping pretty much everything, except camos. And the tier 5 is just a better version of PMFC, of course. One of those fun paths in the game, and now it's also good. What a combination. Ultra Boost. Ultra Boost is definitely my least favorite support tower. It's simply not very fun to use. Don't get me wrong, it's a good tower, especially for the cost. Most of the time, if I want to make a monkey attack faster, I always got a Path to Village, since it buffs everything around it rather than just a single tower. The tier 5 is a bit better. The Perma Boost gives it a reason to be obtained, but by the time you can spend $130,000 on a support tower, the only thing you'll be buffing is a Vengeful True Sun God. Oh well, at least the tier 5 has some snazzy shades. Triple XL Trap. The last tier 5, and what a way to end. Triple XL Trap is really similar to Blue Master Alchemist in a lot of ways. They're both third path upgrades for supportive towers that start by increasing the damage potential and become more focused on making money, and get a tier 5 that can one hit a fortified Zomg. But whereas BMA makes you lose all your money, Triple XL Trap makes you gain a lot more. The trap can hold a whole bunch of balloons, and you get cash for everything in there. Also, because it's so similar to the BMA, I like it almost as much. Nice way to end things. Also, please never get this tower in multiplayer, even the tier 4 will steal everything from everyone else. And that's everything so far. I've been talking about a tier list sales video, so here's the complete version. Am I wrong? Of course I am. And feel free to tell me I'm wrong in the comments, as I'm always down for a friendly debate. Also consider subscribing, it's pretty cool, I think. And with that said, thanks for watching, I'll see you all next time.